Welcome to the Imagine a Life podcast. I'm Frances LaCuesta, and I help women thrive and live a life they love. Together, we'll explore how to tap into our potential, unlock possibilities, and find beauty in this messy and imperfect journey we call life. So hello friends, welcome to the Imagine a Life. I'm Frances LaCuesta and I'm your host. So in this episode, I have with me a wonderful guest and a powerhouse of a woman, Misha Safran. So let me just tell you a bit about her. She is the founder and CEO of the Center for Empathy and Emotional Intelligence, or CEEQ for short, and that is spelled as CEEQ. And she is a trilingual ICF professional certified coach. ICF is short for the International Coaching Federation. She is also an international speaker and an award-winning leadership trainer. So she is also the author of A Teacher's Companion, How to Center Empathy and Emotional Well-Being for Yourself and Your Students. And this is a book where she shares her wisdom from her years of teaching experience. Misha is a single mother of 3 adult children. She also identifies as queer and is a multi-passionate creative who is boldly expressing herself to the world with her multitude of gifts. And so I welcome you, Misha. I'm so glad you're here and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I am glad that we're here together. It's so great to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's really a pleasure. Thank you so much for being part of this and for saying yes, to this interview. All right, so we can go and dive right in. Um, I would like to start this off by asking about, your work. The work that you do right now is centered on empathy and emotional awareness. So I'm curious, what led you to choose this path and why empathy?
So, this is kind of a funny story. So, I'm an empath and a highly sensitive person. There's a book out there for anybody who's wondering why they have a lot of emotions. It no longer lands on me as a curse, but actually a blessing, a gift. Where it used to be, I heard I'm too emotional, I'm too sensitive, this, that, and the other. Now I'm fully embraced who I am. And it's because of when I was teaching, somebody introduced this book to me and one of my sons. But more recently, after leaving teaching and working as an independent contractor as a leadership development trainer, I had a team and we were a beautiful team. We called ourselves Team Awesome. And there were 3 of us and we did DEI training together.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all struggling in where we were with the organization we were working for. And when I asked the question, I feel like it's going to be time for me to branch out. One of my colleagues, Nakanta Hines, said to me, he said, Misha, you're going to be really busy. It's going to wear you out. But where I see you is empathy and emotional intelligence, because that's what you bring into every one of our workshops that we've been doing together. And I thought, wow, that's a compliment. Thank you. And so I ran with it and I've been thanking him ever since. And also my colleague Priya Jindal, she totally was like, oh yeah, that's it. That's it. So they have been my heroes and my cheerleaders, and they're the ones that said this is really truly what's right for you. And the reason is because I feel like people can get very stuck being in the defensive mode, feeling like they're on the attack, like they're being attacked when somebody shares how they feel,
Mm-hmm.
when really a person's feelings is their experience. It cannot and should not be anybody else's experience. And I learned some of this in codependency recovery. However, being a codependent, everybody's feeling and an empath, I felt everything. But the problem was I took things personally,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not personal. And so within organizations, within relationships in the home and the communities, too often people are taking the other people's emotions and either feeling like it's an attack on them or somehow they're wrong to be feeling what they're feeling. And so empathy allows us to take a moment to listen compassionately to what somebody's experience is without defense, without trying to fix, without trying to control. And then the emotional intelligence piece is being able to identify and have that people sense, right? Of, oh, okay, wait a minute. This is the moment I'm feeling feelings because they're expressing feelings. And just getting more in tune with who we are. And, some people have used this as saying like it's a emotional radar. It doesn't mean,
Mm,
oh no, I better run away now because I feel something's brewing. But
yeah.
it's for you, and I just learned a wonderful tool this last weekend, like catching, catching what somebody is saying, but putting your hand here for you to hold and embrace yourself as you
I
hear
love
it.
that.
Yeah, and they refer to it as a piety. It came from Pia Melody. Piety is like catch it and then hold yourself because really it's just you're catching it to be curious, to observe, to hold it. And I've been holding that ever since I went to this retreat and I was like, oh, I love that. Like so that's where I am. That's a long answer for empathy and emotional intelligence, but that's truly what I bring and what I hope to bring in my life and to others as I work with relationships in workplaces and individuals, etc.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful that, thank your friend, right, who actually just
Yeah.
pointed it out to you because sometimes the most obvious is not obvious to us, but it's obvious to others, right? So it does help having other people outside who externally having somebody tell us what we are good at because it's just so natural probably for you
Mhm.
to be empathic towards others, but for other people, it's not as easy. And
Yeah.
it's good you actually mentioned about being an empath and being highly sensitive because I do relate to that as well. you know, like sometimes I ask myself, why do I feel all of these feelings? Why is it so easy for me to feel other people's feelings? Like as if they're mine, they're not my feelings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's great that you did mention that to separate ourselves from the feelings of others and not to make it personal because it does happen a lot if we are not conscious or aware that it's the other person's feelings is not mine to process, but at the same time my feelings um doesn't mean that other people has to feel it the same way that I do, and if they don't, it doesn't mean that it's personal. And I
Right.
guess it's good that you did differentiate that one because it is very common. A lot of people are feeling that way. So um I guess
And I think,
my
can I just add one
yeah,
thing?
yeah, please.
Yeah. So I think I want to make a distinction. So there's a lot going on in the world and has been for a long time, but it's
Yeah.
been extremely tumultuous since COVID came out. It doesn't mean that we don't feel when other people are sad, right? But I'm talking more about when I say to separate ourselves, I'm talking about more of in like confrontational interactions or when there are challenges within relationships that somebody's feeling a certain way because that was their experience. It's not personal. That's their experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I mean, I can feel heavy sadness for,
Yeah.
the horrible traumas that are happening in our country and in the world. And so they're not my experiences, and I shouldn't be the victim of those experiences, but I can feel for you if you're struggling or you're sad. So I
Yeah.
just want to make that distinction. And the other thing I want to say is besides my beautiful partner that I've been in a relationship with for years, this person was the first person to really acknowledge that my feelings and what I bring into the room was wonderful
Mm,
because I spent a lot of my life being told too emotional, too sensitive, making a
yeah.
mountain out of a molehill, right? And so and obviously the book Highly Sensitive Person, it was like this culmination of like, this is a gift that I get to bring in and share and support other people so they can have healthy, positive, nurturing, sustainable relationships.
Right.
Right?
Thank you for clarifying that, Misha. And also, you mentioned a bit about the tool that you just shared. Can you share again how you call that one? I didn't catch that.
So they call it so I don't know if you've heard of like Tai Chi, like
Yes,
you
yes,
do.
yes.
Okay. So they call it Pia Chi because it's Pia
P.
Melody who came up with
Oh, I
it.
see. Piachi. Okay, so it's like,
Yeah.
yes,
So
I feel, but
Pia
I'm also like
Chi.
catching. Yeah. I love that.
Yes, yes, yes.
I love that. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay. So
Yeah, I
piachi.
will never forget it. It was beautiful. I love the way it was explained and described. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
wonderful. Thank you for sharing. So, okay. So empathy, right? There are empaths. They are highly sensitive people, right? But I think what I'm curious about also is, is empathy something that everybody has? Is it like an innate
Oh,
capability, or is it a genetic trait, or is it a
yeah.
skill? Is it a skill that can be learned?
Absolutely no. In fact, a lot of people have asked me, so what do you do with empathy in neurodivergent communities? Like we are all
Yes.
there's neurodivergence everywhere. So no, it is not innate. In fact, some people have a very difficult time with it, and it's not because they're
Mm,
bad people. So we got to make sure we don't say, "Oh, you're not feeling, so you're bad." Like, no, people are just like there's inward, there's outward, there's confusion, there's different spectrums. So I do believe it's a skill that can be taught, and it's up to each person to practice.
hmm.
To be able to become more familiar with it. But there's some people that may not be able to, and that's why we have to, right, take care of
Yes,
ourselves,
yes.
right? Because some people will not be able to understand and process another person's feelings. I think if we're open, coachable, learnable,
Yeah.
lifelong learners, and we don't have anything getting in our way, like sometimes trauma can get in our way of even
Yes,
learning, right?
yes.
So I think it's all about patience and love. And that's my religion is love. So
Yeah.
it's like, making sure that we are, if we know that we're working with somebody or in a work environment or in a relationship or in a community that doesn't have that natural ability and hasn't quite grasped it and may not, how do we then take care of ourselves? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good to know that, it sometimes it comes naturally for some people, right?
Mhm.
But it is a skill that everyone can actually learn from. And what comes up for me though is that before we can learn it, first we have to be aware about, being um empathic, right, towards others, like that. I have to show empathy, a bit of empathy. And I think a lot of people have been, like you mentioned about, it's a tumultuous time, right? I mean, with after COVID, with COVID, and right now there's just so many things happening in the world that a lot of people suddenly like started to not just think so much about, just me about ourselves mostly, but looking out also for other people. And maybe not a lot of us would have that instant feeling of empathy, right? That comes up. But I think it also starts with something that we can be show compassion towards others, and it can begin from there. Or maybe compassion is, part of empathy at the same time, or building
Yeah,
empathy at the same time,
absolutely.
right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to kind of help anybody who's listening who's kind of like, well,
Mm-hmm.
how do I have empathy for somebody whose feelings are
Yes.
about something that I totally don't agree with?
Oh, yes,
And
that's a
that
good
is
one.
called pause.
Mm,
There's so much power in pausing, right? So
I
just being
agree.
able to allow someone to share what they're experiencing and pausing to hear it, however it makes us feel, it gives that space, right? And we don't have to agree, we don't have to disagree. And again, if it's somebody's feeling, there is really nothing to agree with or disagree with. But if it's an opinion or a fact, it's kind of like, well, I have a difference of opinion there, or I have different, I have a different fact there. But when it's a feeling, it's somebody else's feeling. But if somebody shares something, like I was actually on something called a practice circle yesterday, um, by oh, I forgot the name of the person who runs it. In any case, I can try to find that and get it back to you. But they do practice circles where there are people of different walks of life sharing 2 minutes on a topic. And yesterday's topic was, what is it like to be a Democrat or a Republican in
Ooh,
2023?
okay.
We had a lot of different people in the room, a lot of different people. And so as someone is sharing for 2 minutes, which felt like, can you hear me still?
Yes, it's just a little bit of pause there. Can you?
See, I was talking about pause. And so here we
Yeah.
were pausing.
Yes, we're pausing a little bit here. You're just
Let me turn off
okay.
my
So I
camera
can
for a
see
moment.
yeah, let's just pause this. There you go. And can you turn on the video again? Let's see if this works. All right.
Okay.
Yes, that's it. All right. Pause.
I'm just teaching pause. I'm just teaching pause. It's like so
Okay.
ironic, right? I love that. I don't think we need to edit that out.
Yes. Yes. Let's go ahead with it.
Um, so sometimes 2 minutes can go by really fast, and sometimes 2 minutes feels like hours when you're listening to
Mm,
somebody express views or
mm,
opinions or thoughts or
yeah.
even feelings that are completely like, you know. But what we're learning is how to just listen and then to be curious about what the person's saying. And then we had the opportunity to say, I'd be curious to know without defensiveness, without sticking a little like, oh, why are you thinking like that? Without judgment.
Yes.
It was incredible to
Mm,
feel my body from the beginning very tense, like, oh,
mm,
I don't like what this person's saying, to like, I'm just going to be curious here. And then to watch them be curious of us or other people. So I think that even though somebody might not be able to gain the full potential or full skills of empathy, pausing can do a lot.
hmm. Thanks for sharing that too, because I think you mentioned about listening. This one is also like a skill, right? It's a challenging skill to have, especially that we want to be heard, but not a lot of us wants to listen to the other person.
Mhm.
And so even that skill of what is listening and what is genuine authentic listening, and you said it, it's about pausing, it's about being aware of your body, like how is your body reacting, the first time that and it's something that you're against, that it's against your opinion, right? It's against your belief, and just being there and staying curious, and then also noticing how your body responded when you tell
Mhm.
yourself, I'm just going to be here, I'm going to listen, I'm just going to be curious, and
Yeah.
how
And
it
this is
just
why,
released.
yeah. And this is why the relationship I'm in right now is
Mm,
incredible. We do this with each other 4 or 5 times a week. We have a dedicated time where we sit 30 minutes and we talk through things, and we talk through it with intention to
mm-hmm,
listen, with intention to
mm-hmm.
hear the other person's experience. And this is what I teach in my coaching as well. Yeah. And
Intention to
consulting. Yeah.
listen. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very important for,
Yeah.
yeah, the relationships, right? Whether it is in at home, work, or in the community. And that brings me to my next question, which is, how does being empathic like impact our relationships? And you started it off already with your own relationship, but how does it impact our own relationships at the same time at home and in the communities that we revolved in?
Yes. There's a huge impact. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be wonderful, it could be terrible. I will give a micro example of me and my
Mm-hmm.
partner.
Yes.
I'm an extroverted introvert, and my partner's more of an introvert. And so my partner can hold feelings in, and that's the way she processes it, and that's great. It's what she's got to do. But I can feel it, and so I know something's going on, and I kind of have to remind myself, be patient. She'll talk about it when she's ready. It'll come up when it needs to come up, and I just trust. It took me a while to get there, and I still struggle. Like I can feel the feelings, let them out. But that's not. I accept my partner for who my partner is, because my partner is beautiful, wonderful, sage, wise, lovely, right? And I'm who I am, and I'm also the same, beautiful, wise, sage, lovely. And yet we just approach life a little differently. And so, from a micro sense, an empath can feel so much, and there can be this impatience and desire to hear, resolve, whatever, fix, even like I'm trying to manage my fixer here, right? And so on a micro level, we have to pause. We have to kind of say, okay, let me just get curious. What can I be doing right now to take care of me, as opposed to, why am I paying so much attention to what she is or is not saying, right? And so on a macro level, like thinking about out in the community or in the workplace, um, there are people who are going to have different reactions to rules and structures and guidelines and demands in the workplace and in the community that will impact them. and how they express that. As an empath, we're going to feel that. And there's a part of our being an empath becomes codependent, which is we want to jump in and save the day. We want to jump in and
Oh,
take care
yeah.
of it. And it's not ours to take care of. So what does that mean? We have to stop and pause and think about, okay, why, again, like I mentioned earlier, how is this impacting me?
Hmm.
What do I really need to do about it? And the first answer is probably nothing unless it's an emergency. The second response is, oh, come back to me. What do I need to do to take care of me right now? Is it breathe? Is it reach out to somebody? Is it to journal? Is it to take a walk, to kind of release something in our bodies? But so yes, being an empath, um, if we end up reacting instead of just
Yes.
kind of responding, it's going to impact everybody. But if we respond in a way that takes us first, and that's not narcissistic, it's not selfish, to take ourselves into account first, then we're going to have a much better impact on our community and friends and family.
You mentioned about reacting versus responding, right? And you gave an example on a micro level with your own relationship. And then, of course, the macro level, being at work, especially, being in a workplace, right? Or being in a community. And you talk a little bit about, I think, which is also very important on the responding side. And a lot of us would just come in and go into, just being reactive towards things. And I can understand because I myself, I'm also I'm working, I have a full-time job and I work with colleagues, right? And it's also, of course, different personalities. And
Oh
some
yeah.
personalities sometimes, like, we can't always agree on a lot of things. And the question there is really, how does one like work with other people, right? And sometimes there are moments when I feel stressed out, for example, or I'm just not in the mood to be empathic. I'm just not in the mood to be, compassionate at the moment. And I'm just feeling a bit tight and all riled up, So I think the question here is, how does one practice empathy? And you mentioned a few of them already, listening, pausing, but are there other ways to do that and maybe some practices to share?
Well, I don't know that anybody's going to really like my answer. Maybe some people will.
Okay.
Um, but I guess the question is one empathetic for themselves? Do
Mm,
you have empathy for
yes,
yourself?
yes, yes.
That's where you have to start. And again, it is not narcissistic, it is not selfish, but we have to examine, how do we treat ourselves? Because the way we treat ourselves impacts the way other people will treat us. It also impacts the way we treat others. Hurt
Mm.
people hurt people,
Mm.
right? It doesn't mean that all your hurts are going to disappear. But what are you bringing with you every day? And are you forgiving yourself for that? Are you loving yourself for who you are? So there's no
Mm.
graduation. There's like a lifelong practice of,
Yeah.
I still slip into self-loathing and deprecation and imposter syndrome. It's like,
Yes.
but it's taking time to practice being with oneself first. So I guess the simplest, but it's not so simple. It took me a long time to be okay with this. There's one exercise I will offer. I certainly have a lot more that I could talk about and would love to if people want to work with me. But the or read the things I've written. Um, okay, everybody brace yourself because this is not an easy exercise. It sounds like it could be easy, but it's to stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself
Mm.
and be with yourself lovingly, identifying beautiful features, but more so internally, emotionally.
Mm.
Affirmations, I'm beautiful, I'm intelligent, and actually talking to it, say an I. If you feel like you're not comfortable
Mm.
doing that yet, you could say you are beautiful, you are, as you look at yourself in the mirror. But I would say doing that for about 5, 6 minutes. That might be too long, so start with 30 seconds. When I first had to do it, I say had to. I should say when I first got to do it, it felt like I had to do it. It was like saying, "Okay, go and do this, Misha." I couldn't. I
Mhm.
actually had makeup that I hadn't used for myself before, and I took it and I wrote it on the mirror so I could read it. I didn't actually say it to myself. I
Mhm.
had to read the words because I wasn't ready to acknowledge my beauties. And so it's that's the self compassion and having empathy for oneself.
Mhm.
And the more we do that and practice that, I think you'll feel and see a shift. But we kind of have to do that before we can really do it for other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. And that practice that you mentioned, I could understand if when we try it out for the first time, it might not it feel real, right? There's like a lot of that,
Awkward.
no, it's not true. You're lying,
Yeah.
there could be that,
Yeah.
but I think continuous exercise, continuous practice, then it
Hmm.
slowly becomes like, already it's believable. You started believing it already, and it builds
Yeah.
up eventually. So thank you for sharing that simple but not so simple exercise, right? It takes a lot of
Right. Yeah.
practice to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, so your work, aside from, the empathy, emotional awareness, I know you also talk about play, right? You
Uh-huh.
also put a little bit of fun and play in there. So what is how is play? What is the role of play? I guess that's what I wanted to ask. What is the role of play in building empathy?
So the role in play to building empathy is it's a mental shift. It's being able to take ourselves out of where we are, all the seriousness and all
Yeah.
the
Yes.
suck and the struggle, to like, woo, release, get out. And so I smiled a little bit when you were asking, because I just did a training at Ohio State University in May, and there were 80 some people in the room. And I asked people who wanted to get up and wiggle with me. And it was so fun. Like there was literally a third, only a third, but then two more. So I asked, okay, so I'll go through the scenario. So I basically said, okay, those of you who are wanting to release a little bit of tension and also might be on the more playful side, feel free to stand up with me. And then we did a wiggle exercise, and we had such a fun time. And the people who were watching us who didn't get up enjoyed watching us. So there was a lot of love and laughter in the
Mhm.
room. When we were all done, I said, so how many people wish they would have stood up and tried the wiggle? And several, like another third raised their hands. And then, it comes down to just people having these barriers.
Mm.
Like, what are people going to think of me? What is it going to look like? How
Yeah.
I want to stay in this work mode. If I stay in work mode, I'm more productive. But it's not true. It's been proven that we have to take breaks. That's why there's the Pomodoro, we work 25 minutes, take 5 minutes off. And so the play helps shift us from being that hardworking kind of, grunting
Mhm.
kind of focus, to a little shift and a little lighter, which then allows space in our brain and neural pathways to kind of flow. And so we can actually work more productively.
Mhm.
And so, how that relates to empathy is that we're giving ourselves a break, right?
Yeah.
We're giving ourselves a break because we need it. And we're having compassion for the fact that there's a little child inside of us that's like, I don't want to work all the time.
Hmm.
Stop making me work all the time. I don't want to do chores,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, so that was just one example. I just loved it. I was surprised at how many people actually stood up, and I was delighted at the same time. So we
That's
had a great time.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Sometimes we just need to little, lighten things up and just let loose and let ourselves go a little bit. Right. So it could be
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, I do a little like dancing just for me,
Hmm.
just just for myself,
Yeah.
right? Just go around because it does
Yeah.
shift my energy. It changes my
Absolutely.
mood, right? And then a lot of that adrenaline pumping, and I'm ready to get back to work or doing, whatever, right? So it does give a little bit of that oomph and yeah, shift of energy. So it's great, like having that play
Yeah.
coming into focus as well.
And if you shift, that in yourself, other people will notice it.
Oh,
Other
yes,
people will
yes,
feel it,
yes, yes,
right? So then
yes.
there's going to be a shift in their empathy or their awareness, right? Their emotional intelligence, because they're going to be like, you seem a little lighter,
Yeah,
So people feel it, even if they're not empaths. They know that, instead of you're sitting like this, you're sitting like this, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's a big difference. Can you walk around seeing people like this? How does that make you feel,
yeah.
right? As opposed to, you know,
Feels a
kind of
lot
like the old song,
lighter.
"Whistle while you work."
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah, put
yeah,
on a little bit of music. That's true too, right? The
yeah,
energy you bring is felt not just
yeah.
by you, but other people as well. So it's good to
Yeah.
like be
And play
aware of
can be
that.
defined in any way. So I think people need to define what play is for them,
Yes.
right? Some people are like, no, play is not wiggling. And
Right.
for some people, it might be, just doing a little bit of a tic tac toe or something. Or some people, it might be watching 3 minutes of comedy, right? But play can be very different for each person. So we don't want to assume that my
Yeah,
play is your
yeah,
play,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Again, thanks for that distinction. Okay, uh so you are a mother of three adult children and you currently are in a very beautiful and loving relationship. So you spoke a little bit about your relationship with your partner, but I'm also wondering, like, how does the work that you do impact, your role as a mother and as a partner?
Yeah. So I'm going to be very transparent. We all are human. We all make mistakes. We all do things. We can teach, but then doing the work
Yes.
can be really hard, right? So I've done the best that I know how, and I definitely have had very healthy relationships with my adult children. And sometimes there are challenges, and so it's not always perfect. So I don't want to give people the illusion that. In fact, I'll give a story. When I was in college, I had a psychology teacher who was on his fifth marriage,
Hmm.
and he was a family couples counselor. And some of my friends were like, how can he be a family couple counselor? And I looked at them, I said, because he has a lot of experience.
Oh, I love that.
He has a lot of
Yes.
experience on what's worked and what hasn't worked.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so just because, so this is like a message to everybody out there, just because this is your specialty doesn't mean you're going to
Mm-hmm.
be perfect at it. We can't expect perfection. It's progress. And I'm a human that's willing to grow and learn and move and keep going to be the better version of myself every day. Not the better version of myself for each and every person,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but how I can show up fully authentically and grounded so that I impact people in a more loving way. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. But I certainly have a lot of tools and a lot of practices that I can support other people with. So how it impacts my relationship and my children and anybody in my life is, again, back to, if I'm taking care of myself, which for a full year
Mm-hmm.
I didn't.
Yes.
And so things got out of hand as far as the way I was interacting or controlling or, you know, uh, um, responding, reacting. And so if I'm not taking care of myself, that's going to bring the whole ship down, right? But when I am taking care of myself, that ship is going to sail and
Mm-hmm.
float and do a beautiful journey. Um, so that's how it impacts people. And I think that, I've been on a real beautiful, steady trend of self care and self love that has definitely impacted those who are in my life today
Right.
in a beautiful way. Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
care of
But I
yourself.
think it's important to acknowledge the authenticity and
Mm-hmm.
transparency that
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to stand here on a soapbox and say, "Oh, you got to do this because I'm really good at it and I'm perfect." No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. I'm where I am today because I've had to fall forward many times. I've absolutely had to fall forward. So, but it is
Um,
falling forward, not falling
it
backwards.
is falling forward. Yeah. Um, yeah. So there are things that, I noticed that for my mentors, my teachers also, where they used to be that they consider something as their weakness is where they are teaching from. And I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad that you actually mentioned that because, yeah, it's easy for us to like judge other people with, you're teaching that and then, your relationship really is not working. Why are you teaching it? But you said it perfectly. It's like because that person has that experience and it's I think that's also the empathy part, where it comes in, that being in learning from a set of mistakes from the past, it's now easier for that person to actually be able to put, themselves in other people's shoes and actually be really feeling that empathy towards others. So that's what I'm
Well, this
also
is,
like thinking.
yeah, this is the challenge of our society when we listen to someone talk. It happens with politicians too, right? When we listen to people talk, we go to kind of, we do want credibility, right? So how are they doing this in their
Yes.
life? They're modeling it. But then the problem is we put people on a pedestal and they are not allowed to fall off, because if they do, then what they're teaching
Yeah.
me clearly doesn't work. But that's not true. It doesn't work for them, maybe, or it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work for that person over there. So when I go into a workshop and I teach something that I'm maybe still learning, for example, I was a French teacher and a Spanish teacher. I'm still every day learning more French and Spanish. I'm not perfect at it. I make mistakes when I speak, but people can learn from me because I'm excited about it. I'm passionate about it. And it's what they need in the moment. Whether I do it well or don't do it well isn't really relevant. It's how is it impacting you, the student, the person
Mm-hmm.
who's
Mm-hmm.
taking this information in? How is it going to change your life? You get to decide that. I'm not responsible as your teacher, as your facilitator, as your coach to have that happen for you. And if it happens for me or not, it won't matter. How are you going to make it work for you?
Mm-hmm.
And so many people walk away feeling like, I can try this. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, I do suggest things being tried, like at least for a couple months to create a habit, and then it's a habit you can break if you need to. But we can't judge. We're all so different molecularly, and then in other ways. How do you judge a tool or a practice and
Mm-hmm.
how it will impact you if you're judging it based on how it works for that person?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could tell you to go try the Mexican restaurant down the street because I think it's fabulous. And you go down there and you're like, "Ugh,
Yeah.
I didn't like that." Well, of course, we have different taste buds. We have different expectations of how customer service will be, right? So it's the same thing with trainings and what we bring into the world.
Yeah. So what tools work for you may not work for other people, what practices or modalities. So it's our responsibility at least to try and see if it works, and what works we keep. So yeah,
Yeah.
well
And not
said.
judge the success of it on whether somebody
Right.
else falls off the pedestal.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I think this is I want to segue into your book, and you released it this year, right? Early
I
this
did.
year.
Yes.
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 And the title of your book is A Teacher's Companion: How to Center Empathy and Emotional Well-being for Yourself and Your Students. And there it is. You're
My
showing it to us.
book.
It's a beautiful book. I love the cover, by the way. It speaks so much about the topics.
The back.
And yes, of course, it's all about like love. So I love it. Yeah, can you tell us about your journey? How did you come about to writing this book, and why for teachers?
Yeah. So I actually started writing it back in 2008 when I was struggling. And I thought, you know what? It would be really wonderful if there could be like a meditation book
Hmm.
for teachers. And I'm working on that too. So, but that's for right now. So then I took a break because I was struggling. There was a lot going on in my life. And 2 years ago, I thought, you know what? Finish that book because I was focused on empathy. And
Hmm.
the whole idea of giving teachers like something to read and process, and kind of hold on to as they walk into their school week is focused on empathy and emotional intelligence. Like, how aware are you of you and what you bring into the classroom? You're not a bad person. You're not a bad teacher. But what are you bringing with you? I brought a lot of crap into the classroom with me. So I learned the hard way. And so that's why I poured out 30 years of teaching experience into this book, but it's not 30 years of stories. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically it's kind of funny. People are like, why 53 weeks? Well, because I want there to be an extra one for people. So it is 53 weeks
Mm-hmm.
where there's a story, and then it's a lesson, basically something I had to learn as a teacher, and then there are questions for teachers to explore. And really, this book could be for anybody who does any kind of teaching, but it is more specific towards classroom teaching. But so then there's a quite, I'll do it a short one. So this one's
Yeah.
called Just for Today, right? And so you can see there's a story, and then there are questions, and then there's journaling space for the teacher to really focus on. Like when we make a conscious decision to be present today for today, our students often follow our lead. How can you carry this into the upcoming week?
Mm.
And so they get to journal about, like, okay, what is it, and they've read some other things, but it's about, like, what is my vision? Who am I? What are my expectations? Can I drop those? I've got 37 students in a classroom. They're all going to be different people with different expectations
Mm-hmm.
too, and feelings. So how can I bring myself into the room so I can be fully present for them? This is going to be probably the one time during the day that they get this. And unless they have all 7 teachers, whatever level of
Yeah.
school you're talking about, community college. So then after that, there's basically a chart where they can track, what went well today, what didn't go so well today, and what would I like. And actually, it doesn't focus on what didn't go well. It's like, what went well today that I want to relish, right? And what is my hope for tomorrow,
Mm.
right? And then at the end of the week, they get to write down kind of like, what's my intention for next week? And so the reason I wrote this was because I truly feel that pause doesn't happen. And I know it's hard. I'm not saying it's easy. Oh yeah, just pause, everybody, before you kind of start. It takes enormous practice and willingness to say, okay, who am I in this moment? And who do I want to bring into the next space where I'm going? So who am I right now? And do I want to bring who I am right now, all of me, the feelings, the everything, the baggage, the trauma, the challenges,
Mm-hmm.
the angry experience I just had at home? Do I want to bring that with me right
Mm.
now into the classroom? That pause alone, just being able to be aware, right? That's your emotional intelligence. You can take that pause, breathe, don't unlock the door yet. Because honestly, when you make it an emergency, it's chaos. So the more we calm it down, the better off we are, and the better off our students will be. But now the book is adding a little extra twist, which is something to focus on specifically,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be my presence, whether it be my need to ask for help, whether it be my judgment and biases of particular students. Yeah, I'll stop there in case that brought up anything for you.
Yeah. So I love that. And it has been, we've talked about it within the scope of our conversation. Also, it's about, the energy that you bring, or what are you bringing? And it does go back to bringing in that awareness, that kind of mindfulness, in what you do. So as a teacher, like I also used to teach in college, and I did that for several years. And I was I was very green at it, like especially in the
Mhm.
academic setting. And there were a lot of struggles and challenges. And I could just imagine, right, for the teachers right now who are, going through a lot of these things, and be able, how do
Mhm.
you, like, and you mentioned this too, like, how do you deal with different, each of your students who has different personalities, who are also bringing in a lot of things, like from their own homes. And how do
Mhm.
you as a teacher be that model, or be that, in a sense, a teacher is also, like, in a way, a leader, right? Just how do you put yourself in there that you can bring everybody together? And that comes up with, yeah, taking the pause. And your book is helping a lot, because when you were, just showing what the stories, and then the questions that you bring in there, it's like, yeah, I never thought of those things when I was teaching. I would just go in a classroom and say, like, hey, what are we doing today, class?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's really, it's beautiful that you have this book for teachers, and to give them that, the intention of coming in the classroom, that each week they can start with that and end with that as well. And
Yeah.
what changes, right? What changes, I wonder, would come up after that 53 weeks, right? If you finish the whole
Yeah, and
book.
people can do like, yeah, I mean, some people can choose to do, a story a week. It is, some people might feel like, no, I'll do one a month. So it can last you 4
Yeah,
years if you wanted
yes.
to.
You're right, right.
But so it's really up to everybody. And so that's why 53 doesn't really, people don't always teach over the summer, but sometimes it might be helpful to have you do it during the summer when you're really kind of calm. Um, what I wanted to kind of go back and make a distinction is I'm not suggesting that people don't bring their authentic self into the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
but children already have so much responsibility. We have
Yeah.
no idea sometimes what they have to deal with at home. And some students don't have any responsibility and they're entitled and whatever else, but there's still something going on
Mm-hmm.
that has made them entitled. So when we walk in, and unfortunately I did have to experience, a student telling me, Miss Safran, that's your issue. I'm like, you're
Ooh,
absolutely right.
yeah.
Yeah. Like, why are you in such a bad mood? Why are you doing this? And like, thank you. Thank you for like bringing that up. And I had to look at
Mm-hmm.
it. Right. And so, but that's what I was talking about, like falling forward and being a lifelong learner, being willing to grow and being willing to hear the hard stuff. So I'm not telling teachers not to bring your authentic self into the classroom. I'm just saying, take care of your beautiful self, so that you show up as your authentic self in a loving way towards others, right? Because the students can feel it and they've already got other people to take care of. Our students should not have to take care of ourselves. And even in my intro, I do thank, I have a dedication towards my students, to those of them who stood up to me
Mm-hmm.
and those of them who shared with me how they were feeling. Because I wasn't everybody's favorite teacher. I was a great teacher, but I wasn't everybody's favorite teacher. I definitely made my mistake. But I even have a testimonial from one of my students, and she said, it's so sweet. As a former student of Ms. Safran, it is evident that her passion for teaching is still as strong as ever, and her book is a testament to her years of experience and dedication to the craft. Her ability to create a welcoming, engaging classroom environment made learning a joy, and her dedication to each and every student's success was evident in everything she did. Overall, a teacher's companion is a valuable resource to both new and experienced teachers alike.
Mm.
So that was my
So
student,
nice.
Madison Thompson. And but there are students that would probably say, what a hypocrite, and that's
Yes.
okay. And I'm okay with that. At first I was scared, right? But the reality is I can take my mistake and help other teachers do better.
Mm. Yes, and that's the important part right now. Failing forward, and how will you also be able to share that knowledge? And I know that
Yeah.
it's for it's written for teachers, but it's actually anyone, right, who is interested to
I
have
feel
that
like it. I mean, there are
can
questions.
use this.
Yeah, because like here, I just turned to week 1. It says value how you teach, and it talks about, I love teaching and what is it
Yeah.
about I love. And the question is, what do you love about teaching? In what ways do you share these things with your students? But you can say, what do I love about being a doctor? And how do I share this with my colleagues or my patients?
Yes, yes.
So you can change it to be whatever you need it to
Whatever.
be. And I mean, yes, it's for teachers
Yeah.
and
But I just think yeah, it's very relatable to anyone who would want to pick up your book, and also, gift it, right? Give it to
yes, give it to a teacher.
to teacher who
Yeah.
needs that
And
now.
some people are worried, like, well, if I give it to a teacher, am I going to offend them? You can just write a little note saying, I
Yeah,
watched this interview, and as soon as I know you have a big heart. And so as soon as I heard
yeah.
that, I wanted to just gift you with this book. You don't have to make it like, because you can give it to the teachers you don't like to, but give it to everybody. But I think that the idea is to go in with, you're obviously teaching because you love what you do.
Mm,
And I just thought this would be a wonderful tool to add to your already wonderful toolbox,
yeah,
you
I
know?
agree. I
Yeah.
agree
Yeah.
that something to add. Okay, thanks so much for sharing your book, and
Thanks for asking about it and letting
yeah,
me
of
share it.
course,
Yeah.
of course. So, um, yeah, well, I'm curious, is there a particular teacher, right, that who made an impact in your life? Maybe
Oh,
you could share
absolutely.
a little bit about this person. You don't have to say the name, but it's nice just to have to remember someone who has made an impact on
Yeah.
us.
Well, first of all, I will say that pretty much every teacher I had made an impact. Some were positive, some were negative, right? It's the way the world goes
Yes,
around.
yes.
And then there were some that were maybe a little indifferent. So I'm gonna, based on the way you asked the question, I'm assuming you would like a teacher that made a positive impact
Yes,
in my
yes,
life.
yes, yes.
Um, so which and I make that distinction for people because it can be, the way we ask our questions in the world, and we get a different answer. We're kind of like, well, why did I get that answer? Right. So we define for ourselves. Like, you didn't have to define that. I got to choose to, you said impact, and I got to define that how I wanted to. And that's what we do in coaching. We ask the
Yes.
question without any kind of judgment. We let the client, the person. So thank you for asking it in the way that you did. Um, so I had several teachers who made just incredibly positive impacts on me. Um, and I will say, actually, I have some teachers that I did not like what they said or did, but they made a positive impact on me too, because it propelled me to prove them wrong.
Mm.
Right. So I will say my first grade teacher, and I was actually in an elementary school, I was in a year round school. So my first grade classroom was actually kindergarten, first grade, no, first grade, second grade, third grade. And that teacher, I had her for first grade, was Mrs. Trimble. And she was so sweet and kind, and she had all sorts of pets. There were mice and snakes and rats and guinea pigs and a bird, and we got to take them home and kind of be
Oh.
the co-parent for a weekend.
Mhm.
Um, and then she also really saw at that early age that I was a really good reader, but she also saw that I was a helper. So I don't know if it's a good thing that she nurtured my helping, because that's my codependency, but she would have me help other kids read. And that boosted my ego a little bit, right? So she saw that I was kind of somebody that needed to feel good by helping. And that made a really beautiful impact of her seeing me. I will also say my third grade and fifth grade teacher, because my school only went up to fifth grade, that I remember. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. No, sixth grade. Now I can't remember. Anyways, that was Cynthia Harris, and she was amazing. She was kind and compassionate and joyful, and she had us at graduation, our eighth grade promotion, sixth grade promotion. Yeah, I've gotten really confused now. Fifth grade, yeah, sixth grade. Um, she had us sing Whitney Houston's "Greatest Love of All,"
Oh.
and so that really instilled, a passion in me of like, okay, I'm the greatest love of all, right? But she was also very direct. Like, if she didn't like something, she would say, I'd really like you to kind of change what you're doing right now. How do you think you could change that? So that was really cool. And I don't know that she asked it in that way, but that's the way I felt it, right? And then I had some wonderful teachers. My French teacher in high school, Deborah Schaffler, we're friends on Facebook today. Um, and and then in college, I had an English teacher, Dr. Bowen, who really believed in me. And I came into his class believing I was a terrible writer, because the class before, the English teacher said, I'll give you a C, but you really don't deserve it. You're never going to be a good writer.
Ooh,
And I was
okay.
like, wow. Dr. Bowen was like, I love your writing. Writing is subjective,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but he helped me flourish and kind of go with my heart in writing. Um, And so, yeah, I have a lot of teachers, and I will say also my mom and my dad.
Mm.
They were amazing teachers in my life. And my dad actually was a professor. My mom actually did teach therapists. So in certain ways, by the way they existed and lived, they had some really good lessons. My mom told me to breathe, which is
Mm.
very important if I can. And my dad taught me to be resourceful. So I do believe that besides the teachers in the classroom, we have teachers in our life that
Yeah.
impact us in beautiful ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding us, on that. Like, looking at what lessons are we learning from all the teachers in our lives, right? Not necessarily just in the
Yeah.
classroom, but what are we learning from other people? Because we are learning every
Yeah.
day if we just, be very
Yeah.
aware of that too, whether it be on a
Well, and
positive
actually I
side or
meant to,
negative.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I meant to say, like, my own children were my greatest
Yes.
teachers. Like, their curiosity was so exciting for me. Like, it was rejuvenating and refreshing. And my partner as
Mm,
a white woman having grown up on the East Coast, and her willingness to embrace the racism that's been in her
mm,
ancestry and
mhm.
who she is, she's been an incredible teacher to watch her grow and acknowledge and like, and face this pain
Mhm.
of a long history. So yeah, it's being willing to watch the way people around you act and interact. Everybody will be your teacher, and you can learn something
Yeah.
beautiful from it. So yeah, don't
Yeah.
need to belabor that,
Wonderful.
but it's like I
Thank
just
you.
realized like all these different things.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's true.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so just to, wind down a little bit and then yeah, just to wrap it up, I wanted to also know so you've been, of course, gone through a lot of challenges along the way in your life. So I'm wondering, where do you go? Like, what do you do when moments are hard? Right? Like, where do you find joy when moments are difficult?
It's a I love the topic of joy. um, I actually have a list, and I need to pull it out because I've memorized a lot of it, but I have a hundred things on my list of what I can do if I'm struggling. One could
Hmm.
be, I don't know if you can see in the back corner there, hug my teddy bears.
Oh,
I can just
okay.
grab a teddy bear and hug it.
Oh, nice,
A lot
nice.
of people are like, oh, that's so childish, but actually it's really sweet and loving. I like it. I can go for a walk. I can listen to music. I can just take a moment to breathe and do a quiet meditation, or even just like what I often do. The very first thing is put my hand on my heart.
Hmm.
That has become a true habit for me where I'm feeling triggered, I'm feeling challenged, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling sad. I put my hand on my heart. I do it when I'm joyful too. But that brings me joy in the sense of like there's a deep connection inward. And I do feel like joy is an inward feeling. Happy is more like, but we can be joyful. So that's one thing that I do. That's a real beautiful habit for me. But I love to be in nature. Nature brings me so much joy. I can sit and watch. My partner, thank goodness, can too. I thought, oh no, she's going to get bored. But if you see a hummingbird and it's like at a bush, I literally will just stop and watch it and not rush off to finish my walk or go somewhere. It's like I will stop and just watch that hummingbird. Um, or I've mentioned it before, like a leaf will flutter in front of your window, right? And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So really to find my joy when I'm struggling is to
Hmm.
just pause and kind of get grounded and notice the beauty, notice what's out there. It's not saying, oh, what you're going through is not okay. It's not negating or dismissing that what I'm experiencing is okay, poo poo it and put it
Hmm.
aside because that'll just make it fester. So I do acknowledge whatever challenge I'm experiencing. And I ask myself, what really can I do about it right now? Um, so, for example, when I was living in Pennsylvania very briefly, my dad went into the hospital. And I literally had just been in Pennsylvania for 2 months. And I was terrified of moving out of the state because I thought, my dad is older and I'm going to be, you know, and sure enough, he goes into the hospital. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so my initial reaction was, oh my God, I've got to get on an airplane and help. And then I had to take a deep breath, put my hand on my heart and kind of say, okay, what can I really do right now?
Hmm.
Okay, I can feel my feelings. I'm feeling really sad. I'm feeling scared. I don't know what's going on. So I'm kind of in the unknown and making up stories. And I can stop doing that. Right. I can reach out when things calm down a little bit and find out from my bonus mom, like what's happening. And so now what can I do? I can take care of myself. Okay. What can I do to take care of myself? And so you don't automatically enter joy.
Yeah.
I just want people to know that you're not going to like go from,
Mm.
oh, chaos,
I'm
challenge,
joyful.
pain, and angst to, oh, here we go. Because we can, if we just shut it
Hmm.
down. But because I allowed myself that process, when I went for my walk, I ended up seeing, and I know this is really crazy that I remember this, a very cool looking caterpillar that wasn't a caterpillar. And it was like very bushy, yellow, and it was like just in the middle of the ground, near the grass, almost hidden. But because I had done all this processing and love for myself and patience, I saw this creature that I'd never ever seen in my life before. And I got to
Hmm.
watch it inch along, and I was giddy. I was like, so cool. So again, joy is not instant, but when we get into these practices of self-care, we definitely can find joy in so many places. Yeah. And joy can also just be that warm feeling, like
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
sun on the book, right? Warm feeling in our heart and in our gut.
I love it. I especially when you said about your list, I like have this idea. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna come up with my own list because it's so
Yes,
good to
please
go back
do.
to, right? So
Yes,
yes, I'm
yes,
gonna do that little project on that side, and I'm gonna come up with my own list. And some of the
yeah.
things that you said were actually like awesome. So thanks for sharing that one,
You're welcome. Yeah.
and I hope that this also inspires, those who, the listeners and the viewers, right, the readers of this conversation to come up with their own list of joyful of things that will bring them joy in moments when moments are hard. I love
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. And it can be
Yes.
as simple as, remembering like there's this little gift my friend Dan brought me back from Peru. And he brought it back for me because there's rainbow colors, but it's a moonstone.
So
And I just have it
pretty.
on my desk, but I
So
keep it in
pretty.
the bag because it's even in the act of taking it out of the bag
Uh,
and looking at it, there's love for me. And that feels joyful for me. So it can be tiny little things that you put on your
yeah.
list,
Yeah.
right?
Tiny little
Um,
things.
yeah. So don't make it complicated, everybody.
Yeah. Right, right. Sometimes you just okay, it's very cerebral, right? It becomes very
Yeah,
cerebral.
I know. I know.
So
Yeah,
okay,
we learn
that's good.
when in coaching we support people from going from the head to the
To
chest
the
to the gut,
yes,
right? It's like
right.
let's use all of us as opposed to just staying up here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
joy is a feeling. Right? So
it
it
is.
really is about going into the body. Oh, okay. Wonderful. I
Yeah,
thank you so much, Misha, for this. I absolutely love what we talked about, for sharing um your own knowledge, your wisdom, and for sharing this practices, the tools that you have learned along the way. And with that, I'm really, really so grateful. But before we close, I want to ask if there is anything else that you would like to share that I may not have touched on in this conversation.
oh, thank you. That was delightful. I actually am feeling quite warm inside from this exchange. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me.
So welcome.
Um, what might we have missed? I don't know. I think that I just want to put out there to whoever's, listening, watching, or reading. It Things take time, So if you're in a relationship that's challenging and you don't know why, or you're not in a relationship and you want to be, just know that, we weren't born in a day. It took 9 months, right? We don't get our school credentials or degrees in a day. It takes time. We don't
Mm,
even get our groceries in an instant. We have to either shop online or go in person. It takes time. Everything takes time. And so kind of asking yourself, what is your relationship with time?
mm,
And how does that create expectations that then take you out of empathy, take you out of emotional awareness, and get you back in your head where you're not with yourself. So I guess that's the thing that's coming to me right now. And just know that the more we really nurture, I had a friend tell me, Misha, you can't be working in the social justice movement and not take care of yourself.
mm.
You need to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So the more we, that famous, quote, put your oxygen mask on
Yes,
first before
yes.
trying to help other people. It's real, folks. It
Mm,
is real, right? We really need to take care of ourselves and define that for yourself. Maybe before you do the joy list, define for yourself, what does taking care of myself look like? What does that mean? And if I do that, how will that impact other areas of my life? Because I've seen incredible differences just in the last 12 months that I have been very rigorous about doing this. So actually, it's more like 8 months. I'll be honest.
mm.
I had a slip. I had a slip in taking care of myself. But I think that yeah, as we really center and focus on what does self care mean, what does it look like, and how can we make time for it? Because some of us have a relationship with time that is very irrational. There's plenty of time. There's plenty of time.
Thank you again for that reminder. It does take time. That nothing, not everything is instant, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it does take time, and it's okay. Right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Even
so
instant soup. Even
and
instant soup
yeah,
is not
takes
instant
time. Yes, that's
because
true.
you gotta boil the water, you gotta open it, you gotta pour the water in, you gotta let it sit for a few minutes and then mix it. It's not instant. It's a lie.
That's right. That's right. That's Thanks for pointing that out.
My
All
soulful
right.
piece to add in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Misha. I'm so really grateful for this opportunity that we have this conversation. And it did take time for us to to
To get
be in
here.
this, to get here. But I'm happy that finally we got to have this conversation. And so,
Thank you.
with that, I just also want to thank everyone for listening, for watching, and for reading. And if you'd like, I also putting it in the link, uh, putting in the comments the link to Misha's book if you are interested to know more about it, and of course to buy and support Misha in all of her endeavors. And so, with that, thank you so much, and until the next
Thank
episode.
you.
So, bye for
Okay, bye-bye,
now.
everybody.
Thank you for listening. You can read and download a full transcript at bigimpactwomen.com/the imaginal life. If you like this episode and want to hear more, hit the subscribe button in your favorite podcast app. If you feel moved and inspired, head to iTunes and leave us a review. I love hearing your feedback on how we can continue to grow and evolve the program. I believe when women come together, we can co-create humanity's new story and contribute our